Gossip. I want to bring in my panel, Liberal MP Tim Wilson and Labor MP Ed Husic. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having me.
Tim, the Prime Minister has repeatedly refused to answer this question about Brian Houston, saying it was gossip. But clearly it wasn't gossip, even though he accused journalists of basically peddling gossip. Shouldn't he have just said this at the start?
Well, the Prime Minister said it today, and I mean, he's made his choices in the past about obviously not wanting to get in the conversation. But I mean, in the end, the government puts forward a series of names based on people they think it's appropriate to attend these events, and that's really the beginning and the end of the matter. I think people are getting excited about it. It's kind of odd. Ed
Husic, is it kind of odd that people are getting excited about this?
Nope, because this is a pattern of behaviour from this Prime Minister where he belittles people who are asking legitimate, straightforward questions. He sort of stonewalls, takes his time, tries to then hope that it disappears, and then in the middle of something else that's going on, decides to drop this out, not in front of a press conference, but in one interview that he does with 2GB, and thinks he can get away with it. I mean, and then this gets repeated with other major issues that are going on, and I just don't think it's good enough, and it just shows you this sort of arrogance that's crept into the way that he does his job.
Yeah, I mean, it's about answering questions straight, though, isn't it, Tim Wilson? It was a legitimate question. Australian journalists are allowed to ask questions about these things, and the Prime Minister tried to avoid it by saying it was gossip, but it wasn't.
Well, no, I mean, it's not avoiding it. It's just putting forward a proposition that people are saying lots of things. In the end, he's made it clear what has actually happened. You know, I think, frankly, everybody else is focused on much more substantial issues like the government's response to the coronavirus and the challenges that Australia is going to face, both in a health and an economic sense. And I think that's, frankly, where we should all be focused.
Well, I suppose, Ed Husic, that's been the government's argument on everything today, that everyone should just be focused on corona. What do you make of that argument that they've been making, that Australians want the focus to be on this issue, which is clearly very pressing on a health and an economic level?
There is no luxury in public life to deal with one issue at a time, to be ordering events in sequence. Governments, given how complex things are, have to deal with a range of different things at any given point in time. Yes, they have to deal with coronavirus, but they also have to deal with the fact that they've been caught out misrepresenting and misleading on issues around sports rorts and other problems that they've got right now in terms of the way that they're managing the budget or failing to do so. This is all stuff that should be dealt with at the same time, and it's not like you can press a pause button and ignore every other issue just because of one thing that's happening.
Tim, the RBA has cut interest rates by 25 basis points to 0.5% in response to coronavirus. I know you've previously been outspoken about this. Are you disappointed by the RBA's decision, or do you think they've made the right call?
Well, I think what's happened is both the government and the RBA is looking at what policy responses we need to address the challenges of the coronavirus. The economic flow-through, which will continue to unfold in the coming weeks, is quite serious. Obviously, the RBA has made a decision. They think interest rate cuts can be part of that. I think, truthfully, it's let's wait and see. I don't think we should prejudge it because the circumstances are particularly unique. The government has also flagged targeted measures to support small and medium businesses to address the challenges that they face. And this is, frankly, what can happen when you are in a position where you've been prudent in your management of the budget, so you can be in the position when unexpected events occur, just like this one, that we can deliver and help and support the Australian people and the Australian economy.
Ed Husic, what's your reflection on the RBA's decision today?
Obviously, they go through the process of making their call. I don't think, and a lot of people who've looked at the way the economy's been performing, it hasn't been performing as strongly as the government would claim. It was not performing well prior to the bushfires and prior to the impact of coronavirus. And I think there's going to have to be a range of other things that will have to happen to obviously get the economy on stronger footing. And I would make this point too. I'm just going to ask this one question. On an issue as significant as coronavirus, where people are wanting to get clear answers about what's going on and a comprehensive view about what's happening, why is it that the government has not provided a formal ministerial statement on the floor of Parliament outlining in depth what's going on? We get Dixes in question time I don't think they've actually put up formal, I'm happy to be corrected, formal press releases. It's all done by press conference. And really, when it's on the floor of the Parliament, it is a serious thing, and the government has refused to do it. And people should be asking why.
I'm happy to respond to this. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The situation is unfolding on a daily basis. The Prime Minister, the Health Minister, the Chief Medical Officer, the Treasurer have continued to give regular press briefings, as well as, you call it dixes in Parliament. These are actually serious questions about an incredibly serious situation, to give the Australian people an explanation about what is occurring. And let's be quite candid about what the response of the opposition has been in this situation. It hasn't been to listen attentively. The other day, when questions were being asked of the Health Minister about the situation and the health challenges Australia faces, it was the response of the Labor Party to say, is that all you've got? We're taking it incredibly seriously. As events unfold, we're giving updates, and we'll continue to do so. But, the economic and health challenges are not fully realised yet.
Do you know why that was said? I'll deal with it frankly. The reason is because every question that has been asked of the government is in relation to coronavirus. So they don't do a formal ministerial statement. They don't do a formal ministerial statement. They do one question after the other where the questions aren't substantively different. And it comes back to the point that was prefaced in the opening of this segment, where you rightly pointed out that there are a lot of issues happening at any given time, and the government just wants to talk on coronavirus. Once they've done that, they need to be accountable for other things.
Yeah,
and they won't be accountable.
No. This is extremely important. We've had the Prime Minister giving statements, the Treasurer giving statements, the Health Minister giving statements, about the national leadership challenges of coronavirus in the Prime Minister's case, the Treasurer on the economic impacts, the Health Minister on the health impacts. You've had the Attorney General giving answers about the legal parameters of what the government can do around quarantine. You want statements. We're actually providing a full policy spectrum of answers. You just don't like it in question time, and because you're mostly interested in playing politics. And there's a crisis that people are looking to the Parliament right now for leadership. They're not looking for petty point scoring exercises, because they want clarity around the health consequences and the economic circumstances that we're going to face, and that's what the Prime Minister, the Treasurer and the Health Minister are delivering.
Ed Husic, clearly the government is pretty much entirely focused on this issue. Are you saying that this should not be the issue that they're entirely focused on?
No, they've got to deal with this and other issues. That's a reality of modern life, particularly in modern day government. There's not just one issue that will basically require a response. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. And by the way, the response by the Treasurer today, when he was asked a question, the final question of today, he was asked about the decision of the RBA by his own people. He has a full 3 minutes to answer, and he only used 1 minute. So, you're talking about a comprehensive response. He doesn't even have the energy to finish that question. So
because his message was clear: pass on the rate cuts by the retail banks.
Nice spin.
All right.
You know what the country needs? The country needs a statesman, not a salesman.
Let's move to another topic just before we end. Tim Wilson, Bridget McKenzie's office sent emails relating to the sports grants program after the government had gone into caretaker mode last year, and then there were changes made by the Prime Minister's office to the spreadsheets before they got to Sport Australia. Clearly the Prime Minister's office was involved, very clearly, according to this evidence, in designing who got the money with the minister. Wasn't that clearly revealed in the Senate estimates process?
The Prime Minister answered this time after time after time again in question time, and has been quite direct about it from the beginning and to the end until now, which is that at every point when there's been feedback from MPs and representations to him about sports grants funding from MPs, he's passed it on to the Minister, and that's the reality of it.
So even changing spreadsheets after a caretaker is just about passing on? Is that what you're saying?
We can get into there's a long dissertation about what happened on what date, etc., etc.
Well, it matters,
what the Prime Minister has made it clear is at every point he has passed on that communication from MPs about the sorts of important projects in community that they want to see funded, and he's reflected and communicated that.
Ed Husic, is he just passing on information when consulting, when his office consults on these spreadsheets?
This situation gets worse and worse. It's a corrupted process now that has just traduced convention. The reason the caretaker conventions are in place is to stop governments from doing this type of thing. And the denials that we had at the start are obviously starting to evolve with the revelation of evidence. And the government's, and in particular, the Prime Minister's protestations and claims of innocence are clearly being tested and shown to be shown to be short of that reality. And it's just not right. It's not right. I feel in particular for all those mums and dads and volunteers of clubs that in good faith submitted grant applications that they thought would be given a fair run, and they were denied. This is the worst thing, that they were caught up in a cheap, shabby political process, all designed to see the coalition use taxpayer funds as a coalition campaign slush fund. It is absolutely disgraceful, and this is why the government keeps going, oh, we've got to keep talking about corona, because they don't want to answer the other valid questions that are about public administration.
We're actually dealing with the issues of coronavirus because they're incredibly serious, and I think what people want to... what Australians are looking at Parliament right now is looking at who is being adult and focusing on the serious health challenges and the economic challenges this country...
Tim Wilson, interested in accountability on other issues. I mean, they're pretty bright people interested in a range of issues at different times.
Sure, I'm not arguing that at all, but
so they can focus on other issues.
That's why we're focusing on coronavirus. Ed made an allegation. It needs to be responded to.
My question to you is, and it's touching on what Ed Husic just said, do you have sympathy for those people who essentially wasted their time putting in applications that were never going to get anywhere?
Well, I don't accept the basis or the proposition. I mean, there are lots of applications that are put in for various grants projects, some that have a better chance of success than others, and that's always the case.
Based
but if people want to apply and secure funding... No, sorry, that's not true, and there isn't the evidence to substantiate that.
But it is based on what the Auditor General found.
That's not right. The reality is grants were allocated across electorates across the country. The Auditor General didn't find that there was some sort of preference for different postcodes. In fact, even found that Labor seats got exactly the same number of seats funding they were going to get anyway.
Oh, what a joke.
Seriously, what a joke. This is fundamentally a distraction. Labor wants to go down the rabbit hole rather than focus on the substantive issues, and that's why we're going to keep focusing on the substantive issues.
If you're about the substantive issue, why'd you have to do a Gatchen's review of the ANAO report? I mean, and now it's clear that
allegations raised and they were investigated.
A former staffer of Scott Morrison didn't even bother to interview PMO staff, and it's clear now this thing's bounced around 136 times with changes made when caretaker convention kicked in, and you say there's nothing to see here. And for those mums and dads, yeah, they all know generally, like they put in a submission for a grant and they have to be tested against others. But they didn't know when they put those grants in that this would be contorted in the way that the coalition did for a political end that the ANAO said
the reality
absolutely
that
happened.
is just complete and false and outrageous accusation. The reality is applications go into grants programs. There are more often than not more applications going in than funds that can be received. That is always the case. We do it in our local offices, as you do as well, Ed.
We've run out of time.
People always make applications based on the credibility of the application.
Okay, the Auditor General's report is publicly available. The Phil Gagens report isn't, so I suppose people can look at the Auditor General's report if they want. Thank you so much to both of you.
Hang on. I've listened to the podcast. I'm supposed to say have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. I think the day is almost over. Liberal MP Tim Wilson and Labor MP Ed